and turn the time over to the Alumilite team. Take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Maddie.
Hello, everyone.
Tay, it's good to see you again.
You too, George.
I know we work together, but it feels like
yes,
we've done this in a while.
We haven't.
Welcome to you all. So glad you're joining us today. Whether that's you're live with us right now if you're watching me, but you might be watching this on YouTube later. And if you are, welcome then, whenever you're watching it.
Yes. So. This is technically a part 2.
Is it?
Michael's Live. Months later.
Months later, yes. Today we are discussing 2-part mold making, which a lot of you requested specifically. This is kind of a complex thing. So we got an hour today. I'm going to use all the time of that hour. But if you have questions, please ask them along the way. Taylor, you're in the chat, right?
I am in the chat. I will be asking you some of these questions.
Okay.
And then we've got our favorite team member, Sydney, in the chat off screen as well. She'll be typing out the answers that we can't get to today. If there are any questions that we don't answer, feel free to send us an email. It is info@alumilite.com. Sydney will put that in the chat as well. If you have a little more technical question, we might send you to that email address as well, because we don't know everything. We know some things.
We know a fair amount, but we're always learning. Which is great. So,
yes.
All right, well, why don't we get started? 2-part mold making. So I really want to take this time with you to give you a really good understanding, a basic understanding of 2-part mold making. What are some of the core concepts? Let's do a 2-part mold together. If you're going to try to follow along, it's going to be very difficult. So my encouragement to you is to take notes. Remember, this video is going to be available later on for reference as well. But absorb this information, and then I think you'll be able to apply it in a lot of different cases. So 2-part mold making. One of the huge factors in mold making is the fact that you have parts that often look like this, right? They've got a front, something that is really decorative oftentimes, and then they oftentimes have a back. In this case, we'll go to a different camera angle so you can see this. In this case, you can see there's this lip right here. That's an extra detail that's on the back. If we made a 1-part mold of this, we'd capture all the beautiful detail that's on the front, but the back itself would end up just being flat. We wouldn't get this nice lip. This is true of so many different parts when it comes to mold making. I mean, tail lights, headlights. In fact, all the principles you're going to learn today are going to scale. Let me show you what I mean by scale actually real quick. I'm going to get a project.
Oh, okay. I have no idea what you're grabbing. This is exciting. Show and tell. All right. Sydney did share our first mold making class using this, which is Amazing Mold Maker, in the chat. That was our previous Michael's Live.
That's right.
You can catch up with it there. It's about making 1-part molds. I think.
So.
I don't remember.
It's been a while.
It was fun.
It was a good time.
Using the same product today to show off the 2-part mold.
This right here, this mold is actually you can see this is a bowl. This is half concrete and half resin. A very cool technique that we could maybe show you in a future live if you really like that idea. But the same concepts we're going to talk about today, 2-part mold making, yes, they work for light switches, but they also work for things all the way up to something this big, right? Something as big as a huge bowl. And to be honest, if you can master this now, it is going to help you so much.
You can mold basically anything at this point.
Most things. And if you can understand the 2-part mold process, you can understand 3-part and 4-part and 5-part. So this is where we're headed. We're not going to do this project today. We're going to stick to something a little more simple. We're going to do this light switch, which has back detail in it. But this is how wide the applications can be. That's a heavy mold.
Okay. Love it. A reminder, if you do have questions during this process, throw them in the chat. Also on the class list is a list of supplies we'll be using today.
That's right.
We'll try and shout them out as well. But number 1 is our Amazing Mold Maker. Big fan.
Kind of important for this whole thing. So real fast, let's talk about why we do 2-part molds. So I mentioned this already. When you have a part that has detail on both sides, you need to capture that. So if we want to capture that, we're going to need silicone on all parts of, in this case, this outlet cover. So if I'm just going to go ahead and represent on this piece of paper here. Let's say this is our outlet cover. You're hip, you're cool. You get it. Not the greatest at drawing perspective all the time. So this is our outlet cover. We need all sides to be encased in silicone so that we can capture the detail on both sides. Well, here's the thing. If I encapsulate this whole thing in silicone, I can't get it out. I'm not going to be able to pry this out of the mold and then do subsequent castings from it. So that's why what we're going to do is we're going to do this mold in 2 parts. We're going to do the bottom part and the top part separately. How we're going to do that is we're going to actually clay up. I'll write this upside down. Let's see how. That could have been a lot worse than it was.
Good job.
We're going to clay up the base of our mold after building a mold box of it. Set our part in there. Pour the first layer. Let that cure. Take the clay off. Pour a second layer. Let that cure, and then have 2 parts. Don't worry, I'm going to go over each step
Love it.
at a time.
Thank
but
you.
That's the basics of 2-part mold making, right? Where instead of just locking a part into silicone, we're going to make 2 halves at 2 different times. So that's kind of the basics there.
Nice. Because normally you would just glue that down into a box, pour the silicone on
That's
top.
right.
You'd have a nice top of the cover mold.
Yeah.
Got it.
You'd have a 1-part mold. The other thing is we have holes in this piece that we have to deal with too. So a 2-part mold actually helps with having holes in the piece. So all of this is going to work very easily. So something as complicated as this isn't even that complicated. That was satisfying. I got to be honest. Cool. So, all right, let's start with step 1. And step 1 is always going to be creating a mold box. It's going to be creating the thing that is going to contain all of our silicone. Today, one of the tools that should be on your list is foam core. So this is foam core. You can get this at Michael's. This stuff I use probably 10 times a day. I'm using an X-Acto knife, a cutting mat, and foam core religiously, constantly, honestly, constantly. You'll see I've got my walls that I've pre-cut. I'll go over that. And then also a base. The base is really important in this process. It's where we're going to put all of our clay, but you can check the size. I've got enough of a buffer here that I can put my walls on the sides to glue those up, but also get silicone around the edges. If I made this too small, if I make this too tight, there's barely any silicone. Actually, I'll use this side so you can see a little bit better. There's barely any silicone there. That's not going to be a good structured mold. I'm not going to have a lot of lateral stability, I think it's called. Can't remember the directions as I'm doing this. But you're not going to have a lot of stability. You need some buffer here around your part. About 1/4 inch is plenty in order to make sure you have a good mold in the process. So this whole thing just starts by saying, all right, I'm going to put this roughly in the center. I'll use a pencil real quick, give myself a few reference lines. Hey, might as well, because I can. There you go. That's where our part's going. Slam that down. Sorry about that. It was too loud. All right. So now we're going to just go ahead and put our walls on this mold. Now that I have where my light switcher outlet cover is, I can go ahead and determine where I'm going to put these foam core walls, about 1/4 inch outside. Now, a hot glue gun is honestly the easiest way to get your molds actually well built. Believe it or not, I was listening to a couple professional mold makers in the movie industry, and they're just using hot glue and foam core.
You can't go wrong.
You can't go wrong with this stuff. This is the way to go. But instead of just hot gluing this right away, I'm going to use some CA glue and some accelerator, or kicker is another thing that people call it, just to get these tacked up so that I'm making sure I have the walls in all the sizes that I need. So all I'm going to do, and I got to do this a little bit towards me, I'm just going to, here you go. See if that works a little bit better for y'all.
And are you using the straight edge of the foam core, or are you just freehanding it and
Good question.
Covering it with glue?
Good question. So what I will do sometimes, and it kind of depends, but I'll use the factory edge, which is the straight edge that comes along the foam core, and I'll label that. I'll just put an arrow down and I'll put factory on it. It's a good way for me to remember what that is.
Sure.
The truth is we're going to use hot glue around the edge, and it's a pretty small mold. So it's not super, super critical that we do that, but it is helpful to kind of know that. It's not super
critical for you. I wasn't allowed to use scissors when I was a kid because of how crooked I cut my lines. So I'm going to say I would use the factory edge.
Fair enough.
Fun Taylor tidbit for everyone.
I love that. All right. So I've got 2 sides, and you can see why I use CA glue and kicker, just because it's really fast, right? These walls they're not completely stable, but they're not going to fall off if I'm doing things. So, all right, now we need to do the other 2 sides. So truth be told, I can see the distance between my 2 parts is right there. That's the size I need. I just grab a pencil, do a little mark there. Now I have a mark on my foam core. Grab an X-Acto knife or scissors, whatever you're comfortable with. Use the tool that you're comfortable with.
Or
and then-
allowed.
or allowed to use. That's true. And then you can just cut your foam core like that, slot it in between the two, and then tack it down just like before.
Beautiful.
So really quickly, we are building a mold box that we know is going to work. It's going to be solid. We know it's the right dimensions. As I'm going, again, I've done this a few times, so I can go pretty quick, but you're noticing I'm putting the right amount of gap between the edge of the outlet cover and the edge of the mold box. I need that much silicone around there to make sure our mold's a stable mold. So there we go. You're hip, you're cool, you get it. So I'm not going to do this edge. I want you to be able to see in there. And if you have questions, please ask them. What I am going to do is just show you the hot glue as well. That's an important part of this. Hot glue, I learned to weld maybe about a year ago, and I realized that welding is just hot gluing with metal is all it really is. So all we're going to do, what I was taught in welding class was you're laying down beads and you're trying to make sure everything's consistent and everything is well bonded. Same is true with hot glue. I want to lay a consistent line across this edge to make sure that there's no leaks, there's no air, there's no nothing between the foam core wall and the foam core base. When you have a gap or a leak here, that's where silicone, just flows right out of the mold. Silicone's extremely, extremely thin. It can be very, very viscous, and other silicones, depending on what you're using, can have a really long open time, which means if you have a pinhole leak, it's going to leak and leak and leak and leak. Taylor knows. You've witnessed me very frustrated doing the whole thing. So
yes. While you are hot gluing,
Please.
real quick question. If I want to make let's say a large mold,
okay,
let's say a bowl.
A bowl, something much bigger than what we're doing here.
Yes. Does it matter how thick the silicone walls are? Is there ever a specific measurement of how much extra there should be around the sides?
Like around the distance outside of the 1/4 inch that I mentioned?
Yeah. Or is a 1/4 inch always, regardless of size, going to be sturdy enough for your part?
It's a really good question. I think this is one of the parts of this class that I knew was going to be a little bit difficult as we walked into it, because the answer, in all honesty, you can see the hot glue there, is that it depends. It depends on the mold that you're making, all of that. What you have to think about when you're doing 2-part mold making is, once this is all done, you're not going to have the mold box walls to keep everything intact. You're just going to have 2 floppy pieces of silicone here. You can use some foam core and some rubber bands and stuff to keep it structurally there, but you do need enough material and enough mass to keep its dimension, right? So harder silicones, which are firmer, keep their dimension more. Thinner, more flexible silicones
Need bigger walls.
Because all those different things.
That makes
Truth be
sense.
told, you can do a lot of different practices and applications to mitigate those things. But what I would basically tell you is, the bigger the mold, the larger the thing, make sure you have a good amount of silicone, at least a 1/4 inch around everything. And if once you finish your mold, if the mold isn't holding shape, then what you're going to do is build what we call a cradle, or something to hold the silicone into its original place. Plywood, foam core, there's a lot of ways you could do that. So
got it.
Makes
Thank you.
sense? Of
Thank
course.
you.
All right. You get it. Hot glue. You go around all the edges. Don't forget to go up and down here. Anywhere that these walls connect to the base needs to be hot glued down. So we're going to kitchen show this because we only have
Ta-da!
an hour. So would you please hand me the,
bada bing, bada
incredible.
boom.
All right. So now we have a completely finished, ready to go, hot glued mold box. These walls are crispy. We feel pretty great about it. If we were doing a 1-part mold, I'd hot glue that right in there and we dump a bunch of silicone in there. But that's not what we're doing today. We're going to do the next phase of 2-part mold making, which is laying down clay in this here. Oh, incredible, Tay. Incredible. So I'm using Craftsmart's, basically their modeling clay. Here's a key thing. Listen up, y'all. This is sulfur-free clay. We don't want to use a clay that contains a lot of sulfur, specifically if we're using silicones, especially platinum cure silicones like Amazing Mold Maker, because what they'll do is inhibit the cure.
Yes.
Sulfur is something that inhibits the cure of silicones, which means it just ends up runny and kind of gummy, and it's not going to work.
If you're taking notes, that's the one note to take.
Take that note.
Sulfur free.
Sulfur free. This is sulfur free. So you could save yourself the hassle and just go buy Craftsmart stuff.
Sydney will probably link it in the chat because she's awesome.
That's very true. And then I'm having trouble opening this package. Going live and struggling for y'all. That's it.
We do it for the people.
That's right. Here we go.
Some ASMR.
Y'all are either hating this or loving this. I recognize that. Really made this hard on myself, you know?
We did not kitchen show the clay.
No, we didn't. That's okay. This is, well, that's what y'all are gonna have to do as well. So I'm just giving you, just prepping you.
A real life look into making a 2-part mold.
That's right.
We're not going to lie to you about this process.
Yes. That trash goes into somewhere. There we go. All right. So we have a block like this, which is, it's great, but obviously just setting it in there is not the way to go. That's not going to give us the mold that we need. And truth be told, what we're going to do is sink this light switch down into this clay. So we don't need this much of like a buffer of this clay. Really what we need is about half of this. So what I'm going to do is grab a clay tool. Honestly, you can use clay tools specifically. You can use popsicle sticks. You can use knives. Just use what you have to make it easy. And I'm just going to kind of slowly cut along this seam that's kind of already in the clay. Makes it pretty easy for us. Just kind of separate it as we go. It doesn't have to be perfect. You know, we're just trying to cut it in half here. Get my workout in.
I get it so easy during these.
Yeah, we should change that around.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have you start doing stuff. You're in the
No
chat
scissors, no hot glue.
No,
I'm good at mixing things. So
that's true.
when it comes time for that, I will gladly
down?
help.
All right. Okay, we're almost there. I'm almost through. Again, I'm just working my way around. It's kind of like cutting cheese. You know how when you cut cheese, the knife can like take it away from you.
Yes.
So take your time here. You want it to be down the middle if you can. Here we go. All right. So there we go. I've cut it in half. I'm going to bring my mold over. Now you can see we're getting a lot more coverage here.
Ooh.
Lot more coverage. So what's the plan? Well, the plan now is basically to push this down in here, get this set so that we can put our outlet cover down into it. So I'm going to go ahead. This is where things get a little hot. A lot of formation here. So I'm going to connect my two sides first. Again, this is about just working it into the box that we've built. This is the time intensive part of 2-part mold making, is smoothing out this clay. Why we do it this way is because it works. We know there's not going to be any leaking. We know that we can remove the clay very easily. We can put what's called registration marks into this clay, which will be something we talk about a little bit later. And we can kind of work it into our mold. It does take a while. This is something that
It's also cold out here.
Yeah,
and
it's
I
not
feel like it's pretty hardened up at this point.
it is. But again, you can, depending on the clay type, you can usually soften it, work it in the hands a little bit. Will actually warm things up as well. Ugh. We're doing the whole thing live for you. So here's what I'm actually going to do. Make this a little easier on myself. Take it out of the mold because I know I can afford to. If I put it in my hands, my heat from all of my hands will actually transfer to this, soften it up a little bit faster, and this will go a lot easier. Another thing about this clay that I really like, it's actually reusable.
Ooh.
Yes. So you're not wasting a bunch of clay that you're throwing out later. The silicone removes from it very easily. It's the way to go. Oh yeah. Really glad I took it out of the mold. That's a lot better. Oh, perfect.
What does that feel like?
It's a
I feel
great
like
question.
you're just doing it and I have nothing to ask you. So I'm going to ask you about the clay.
Cold, stale marshmallows.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
I got it. Immediately I know what that
Immediately
feels
understood.
like.
Yeah.
I've been camping. I've left the marshmallows out overnight.
I've been camping. I'm aware. I'm well aware. All right. We're getting
Glenn
to a
says
much
you
better
need a
spot.
rolling pin. Not a bad idea.
It's not a bad idea. I was trying to save us from the rolling pin, Glenn. You're not wrong. That's what I will definitely use. If you're trying to get a uniform thickness of the clay as well, what you can do is a rolling pin with stir sticks on either side. So that rolling pin only goes to a set height.
Nice.
You can actually roll it that way, which is really cool. I was trying to keep it a little bit easier for y'all, but
if you're going to reuse this, do you have to store it a certain way?
it's a great question. Usually clays like this don't dry out in the air, which is pretty awesome.
Nice.
So I would say read the instructions. I don't want to mislead you.
Not all clays.
Not all clays are that way. So just read your instructions, but the Craftsmart stuff is pretty great. So,
nice.
All right, I'm going to show you this in 2 seconds. You can see why 2-part mold making is a little bit more labor intensive than just hot gluing something down. But I've got my clay in a pretty good position now where I filled the box, right? It's got a good base to it. I can push this light cover down. That's not going to be a problem. Pretty easy, pretty straightforward. So I go ahead and show you, I think you see that all right. It's white clay in a white box, so I recognize that. But all of this texture that you see, all of the finger and smudge marks and all that is going to show up in your silicone mold. That's not necessarily a problem per se. That can work fine. That just depends on what you have going on, what your project specifically needs. There's a lot that goes into that too. So, all right, we're at a great spot with this.
I agree. It looks great.
I'm just going to go ahead and put that light cover just on there so you can see I've got plenty of width around everywhere. That's great. I've got these holes, no problem. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take this outlet cover. We're going to sink it into the clay, right? We're not going to leave it up right here, and push it just gently down into it. So about half of it is inside the clay, half the edge, and then half the edge is outside of the clay. What
that makes sense.
Yeah, it's going to be our seam line between the two halves of the mold. So wherever I push this down into, along that is going to be the seam line. That'll make sense as we continue on. So I'm just going to take my time, press this down into the clay. Again, warming up the clay, not working in a cold shop. Those things help this process. Cool. So it's in there now, but you might be hard to see, but I think I can show you right. Here we go. Right. Okay. There it is. Right there is a gap. So that's not necessarily as far down as we want. That's not a big deal. That's why we have clay tools. We have tools like this, or even popsicle sticks that you can grab. And what we do is we go around that edge and we make sure that there's clay everywhere that we need it. We don't want any silicone sneaking underneath our part here, right? That's important in this process. You got to make sure everything's nice and sealed up. Plus, the more work you do now, making sure the lines are clean, making sure everything is as beautiful as possible, the less work you have to do later when you're actually demolding something and casting it and trying to have a finished part. Make sense?
Makes sense.
Makes
we'll
sense.
Have Jordan show the edges of the mold once he's finished playing it up.
I promise. I promise.
We would never keep that from you.
Yeah, welcome to class, and we're not going to tell you everything you need to know. That would be the nightmare.
Good
right
luck.
There. Good luck. All right. Any questions so far? I'm curious if people have, if this is making sense. It feels pretty straightforward, but
it
again,
feels like it's making sense. We're getting a lot of very application specific questions,
Sure.
which we understand. You all have things in your head that you absolutely want to make. We cannot see inside of your head, so we don't know what those things are. We love that you're asking these questions. Sydney will probably respond to all of those questions, asking you to send us an email, because honestly, that's the best way to do it.
Yeah.
You're going to get the people who know the most about this stuff. You might even get Jordan.
Hey-o.
Who's to say?
Who's to say?
That being said, when you are using the clay,
Mhm.
does it have to be completely flattened before you press your piece into it?
Great question. Technically, no, but you'll find out that your number one, your mold won't be as clean. You're adding texture that it could lock into, which could be an okay thing to do.
Mhm.
But you'll notice, I'll show you a little bit more once I've got this further along. Mine's not perfectly flat right now. I've got a lot of bumpy texture in this. I'm going to add registration marks in a second, so that's not a big deal to me, right? This is okay. The silicone's going to lock into the silicone because I'm pouring those two halves together. If you really want to make this super, super smooth, you can. That's a beautiful way to make it, but it's not critical. The most critical thing is making sure that the clay is high enough for your second piece. If you do a really thin clay up, what'll happen is you put your part in there and you go, sweet, I've got it. It's called clayed off. I'm good to go. You'll flip it over. You'll remove the clay to do your second mold. And you realize you have like no space in your mold box for a second half, right? There's not enough. So you need a good buildup, a good base of clay that's going to allow you to have a second part of your mold that's thick. So does that make sense?
It does make sense.
Okay. If it doesn't make sense, please say something in the chat because I want to make sure that this is all clicking for everybody. If you can get this, you can pretty much get anything when it comes to mold making and casting. So cool. All right. So let me cover something real quick I've been doing as we've been chatting, and that is I've been filling in where the hole is on this light switch cover. So this one right here, right there, you can see there's a gap. There's a gap between here, the actual bridge, I guess you could call it, where a screw goes in, and the actual hole itself. So silicone's going to leak underneath of there, and it's going to lock this part in. We don't want that. We want to make sure that it looks much more like this, where there is clay built up all around this wall so that no silicone goes anywhere except where we want it to go. When we demold this and do the second half, you'll see why that's very, very important. So, all right, I'm going to speed through this as quickly as possible. Tay, if a question comes up,
yeah, I got one.
You got one.
Timing.
Fire
Great timing.
away.
If you are making a mold box of varying sizes,
Sure.
foam core is an option.
Yeah.
What else could I use to build a mold box?
Oh.
Let's say larger than
Sure.
this application.
Yeah. The larger the application, the more stiffness you're going to need. So if I'm doing, let's say, oh man, a very large silicone mold, I'm doing it of an arm or something like that, I'm going to use like wood. I'm going to use melamine, maybe the white stuff that has like the composite wood in the middle of it. Melamine's great in that case. You want something that has much stiffer walls, because that silicone, the more mass you add, is going to push. It's push and push and push, especially if it's a deeper mold. If you have a mold that's, let's say, I don't know, 1.5 feet like this, the pressure at the top, it's not that bad, right? But at the bottom, that bottom silicone's under a substantial amount of pressure because it has not only its own weight, but the weight of all the silicone that's on top of it. So if you have a really big mold like that, there's going to be a lot of force at the bottom pushing things out, which means hot glue and a little bit of foam core might work, but you might have to reinforce it. So very, very large molds, I go to wood. You know, I use a much more rigid material so I can make sure I get it. Awesome. The other bonus of doing that is if you do something out of wood, then you have a built-in cradle, like I mentioned before. The idea of you need to put the mold kind of in something to make sure it's solid. So you can do a thinner silicone pour in that instance if you use a cradle.
Keep it in the wood.
That's right.
Got it. That makes sense.
That's right.
Thank you.
Yes, of course. All right. I'm going to call this good enough. You can take your time with it. You can make this something even more intense. But right here, you can see I've got my clay up. You know, everything is properly plugged. There's not going to be any leaking. Now what we're going to do is add registration. So registration is very simply, it is going to be bumps and grooves and locking connections that allow the two silicone mold halves to lock together and not wiggle out of kind of position. If I didn't put registration marks in here and I put these two mold halves once they're all done together, there would be nothing really gripping them, right? They want to slide around and not stay connected. So what we do is in the clay itself, we're going to use a clay tool like this. You can use a knife. You can use a lot of different things. We're going to go ahead and cut registration inside that clay.
Got it. So when you pour the silicone, it's going to fill that crack and have that bump on it.
It's going to have that bump,
Yep,
right?
that
So
makes
when we
sense.
pour our second half, it doesn't have the bump. It has the negative. It has the negative. Perfect. Look at us in sync. So when I do that, those two silicone halves lock together, and that mold now is much, much easier to cast in. So
Awesome.
cutting registration, you just want to think about, if I just put a little dot here, that's great. That's going to let me know. Make sure you can see this. That little dot right there is going to let me know that those two halves go together there, but it's not giving me a lot of stability. So if I cut a longer, curvier registration mark like that, you can see that there, that's going to give me not only a very specific type of mark, but it's going to give me a lot of hold in a lot of different directions and dimensions. So when I have those two silicone halves together, it's going to stay locked in there pretty easily. So registration, folks, it's a good part. A clay tool like this is a good one. Depending on your project, that's another reason why I tell you leave at least a 1/4 inch so you can cut registration.
That makes sense.
I'm going to, you notice I put registration on 3 sides of this. And then on that 4th side, I'm actually just going to do the end of a pencil right here. And I'm just going to put a dot in the corner. Hopefully you can see that here. Press in, right? That leaves a little indent. I didn't quite press hard enough. There we go. So that leaves a little pin right there. Same concept as the other ones, right? There's going to be a proud pin, and then there's going to be the negative of that around it. But I'm doing that here because I'm actually, after we pour this mold, I'm going to cut a vent right here that I'm going to pour into, or spout technically that I'll pour into to fill up this mold. So there you go. There's your clay up. I filled the holes. I've got registration. I've hot glued the whole base, and there's clay inside. So the chance of silicone leaking is going to be very, very, very small. And we're ready to mix up some silicone.
We are. We're
All right.
halfway through the class.
Woo!
This is the time to send in your questions
Yes.
about mold box building, claying something up, 2-part molds. Bring it on.
You got to fire away, folks.
And then the rest of the class will be silicone. Fire your questions at us. We might have to Google them. Maybe not. We might be able to answer off the fly, but
Sure.
we love this stuff. Hopefully you guys are entertained as well and learning a lot.
Learning a lot.
I do not have any safety glasses, so I cannot mix for you.
All is forgiven. I didn't think it through. I think Matt's going to come through for you anyways, but all right. So how much silicone you need is a key question we get a lot. I could tell you that there's, I think it's 0.554 grams per cubic inch. Y'all aren't going to do that. What are we kidding
Who's going to
ourselves here?
remember that?
You could just go to alumilite.com, go to the volume calculator, and we've actually built a tool that will allow you to figure out exactly how much silicone you need per your project. It'll tell you how big is your part, how big is your mold box, is it cylindrical, is it square, all of that. So that way you get the exact amount that you need.
That link will be coming in hot in the chat
Here we go.
from Sydney.
That's right. I
Working her
know,
magic.
because we've kitchen showed this, that I need about 8 ounces.
Oh,
So I got a handy dandy kit of Amazing Mold Maker here that totals 16 ounces, which means 8 ounces for one half of the mold, 8 ounces for the other half of the mold.
that is perfect.
Look at that.
You could not have planned that better if you tried.
It's like we were thoughtful. Here we go. All right. So this is our Amazing Mold Maker. You might remember this from the last class if you were there. If you weren't there, Amazing Mold Maker's 2-part silicone platinum cured. And it is 1-to-1 by volume. A lot of silicones you'll see out there on the market are not 1-to-1 by volume. They are 2 parts to 1 part, 110 parts to A to 185 parts. Y'all, it is a lot to deal with. So we made it easy for you. And this is at Michael's. So just go to Michael's, grab it off the shelf, get
You're
some
ready
mixing
to
cups and some
go.
stir sticks. That's right. and
You
you're
are ready to go.
All right, so I'm going to move my mold right here. I've got my 2 parts of Amazing Mold Maker. We often get a question about degassing silicone. The truth is, it's always helpful to degas silicone if you can, but it's not really necessary unless you're pressure casting in that silicone mold afterwards. Then you definitely want to degas it. We're not going to degas this today. It's still going to turn out perfect, which makes me so very happy. So 8 ounces, I'm just going to mix up 4 ounces of side A, which is a beautiful red color. Using my graduated mixing cup here. That makes it very easy. Look at that.
All right, we're getting a mold box question.
Fire away.
Could I use a metal or glass cake pan as a mold box?
Ooh, good question. Yes, you can. The only thing I would have you keep in mind is you're going to have to get that mold that you pour out. So you need to kind of think through the process of this a little bit. So if I use like a steel box to make a mold, I'm like, all right, it's time to get this out of here. I'm going to have to go get my angle grinder with a cutoff.
You can't
disc.
rip off just like you can with foam core.
Not quite.
Yep.
So that's another reason why foam core, because it peels away so easily. I don't necessarily have that problem. So can you do it? Yes, absolutely. You're not going to have any like cure inhibition issues or anything like that. But I would recommend you do something or use something that you can take apart. That's why if you use wood or something like that, you usually have screwed everything together so that you can just unscrew it and then
Makes sense.
take everything out.
Makes
Pretty
a
easy.
lot of sense.
Now, as I answer that question, I mixed up this amazing mold maker, 1-to-1 by volume, 8 ounces here. I might use 10. We'll see. 8 ounces is going to be good enough.
Special tips or tricks to mixing this?
Yeah, great call. So number one, the open time of this is fairly short. You need to get this into the mold within 6 to 8 minutes.
Okay.
I usually try to get it within 60 seconds or so, but you're going to mix equal parts by volume, stir very, very consistently until it's one uniform color, scrape the sides of the bucket, scrape the bottom of the bucket or mixing container, and then also make sure you scrape off the stick. Uncombined material gets on there, just perpendicular to the edge, and then remix that together. So I have kept the stick really pretty firmly pressed to the bottom of the cup, so I'm not adding a ton of air into this process. But again, silicone naturally degasses extremely well. If you were pressure casting, then you want to degas this in a vacuum chamber. We're not pressure casting today. We're going to keep going. All right. That is mixed up. We're good to go.
Easy peasy.
I'm trying to make it easy on y'all. This is it. This is 101. These are the basics. So, all right, I'm going to show you this to the camera to make sure you can see this perfectly. We've got this light switch cover. I'm going to pour in one spot. I'm going to pour back here. I'm going to pour consistently, and I'm going to let the silicone do all of the moving and filling. I'm not going to do anything. I do that because that allows the silicone to move around the part and limits air trapment. So if I just started pouring this and I just poured and just ran it all over the part and was willy-nilly about it, I could trap air somewhere around here. A little air bubble could get caught. You don't want that. An air bubble in the actual silicone means it's going to have a little, like a bump on your actual finished part that is in the mold forever and very, very sad. You'd have to start all over, and I don't want you to have to start all over. So I'm pouring in the same spot. I'm pouring at a consistent pace. I'm going nice and slow, easy peasy, no big deal. Now, let's say I haven't mixed up enough silicone, which might be the case here. You could panic and be like, oh no, it's ruined. Truthfully, it's not ruined, right? Silicone sticks to silicone, right? It doesn't stick to resin, doesn't really stick to almost anything else. So what you can do is just pour a little bit more in the mold, actually right on top. It shouldn't be a problem at all. It's pretty great that way. I love silicone. It's my favorite material. If you haven't tried it yet, you got to do it.
It's so easy.
You got to do it. We're not even trying that hard right now. We're just having fun.
That's a lie. We are trying.
All right. So for example, I'm going to be like, oh, bear, not quite. I want a little bit more here than I've actually got. Are we going to panic? No. Mix up a couple more ounces and we'll move on. I mean, I might not even, for the sake of
the old kitchen show.
For the sake of the kitchen show, we're going to move on. I did technically cover everything.
That was satisfying.
That was extremely satisfying. There you go. So that's it. 8 ounces covered the whole thing. Why I might add a little bit more is because I want to make sure that there's a thickness to the mold. All right. If it's very, very thin, again, it's going to be much more difficult to cast in. If I pour the casting resin in here, then it's going to push against the walls and I don't want to deal with that. So
makes sense.
Again, add a little bit more if you're not quite sure. I could have used just 8 ounces if I maybe clayed it up a little bit higher and made some adjustments in there. So again, it's a learning process. You're going to figure it out as you go. We've poured it in the open time. It's nice and degassed, But now we have to wait 30 minutes for this to cure, or we would normally have to wait 30 minutes. We definitely don't. I'm going to put that to the side. Stuck a note card to it. I actually do need you to peel that off. That's funny. All right, look at that.
Oh, wow, it cured so fast.
Fantastic. So,
but for real, it is the fastest curing silicone we have.
100%.
Or pourable silicone, I should say.
I struggle using other silicones, to be honest with you.
Who has the time?
I don't. I can tell you that right now. I don't. All right. So, well, again, we've prepped this. You might see a different clay underneath of here. That's okay. It's the same process that I'm going to show you. So, all right, you've got your first layer poured. What you're going to do is you're going to flip this over. Now we have our base. What we're going to do is remove the base. We are not going to remove these walls.
How come?
Oh, you'll cry so much if you remove these walls. Because here's the thing. We have to pour the second half of this. We need the first half to stay where it is. And we don't want to dislodge the part that's in here either. We need everything to stay in place.
Except the clay.
Except the clay.
That makes sense.
So we're going to remove the clay and remove the base. You're just going to have to take your time with this.
I would have been so ready to just rip this apart. So I'm glad you said that.
Yeah, you'll be upset. All right, so I'll show you this if I can. Just being nice and gentle. Again, we're not reusing this foam core, so it's okay. I'd rather take it off in chunks than try to do it all in one sweep and then pay the sweet price. It's actually kind of hard to do this with gloves on, to be honest. There we go. Oh, so much better. All right. So again, a different sulfur-free clay. No big deal. Looks like it does look like milk chocolate. Don't eat it. Don't eat the clay.
Don't do that.
I feel like that needs to be said. You never know. All right. So now we have this clay that we're going to remove. We're going to remove this pretty carefully using the same clay tools as before, because we don't want to dislodge the part that's within there. So I'm going to just grab, in this case, I'll just use a wooden stick or something like that. Just going to try to dig. Now, if you have done this well, appropriately, you can usually get the clay off in one big chunk. I'll see if I can do that for y'all. TBD, kind of messing up my walls here as well. That's all right. Just taking my time. If you try to go too fast, you'll end up forgetting something along the way. And then again, you'll be very, very sad. It's not great. Easy does it, Jordan. Don't be aggressive.
Throwing clay over here.
Clay. Shooting clay. Shot clay at Matt. Matt's running the videos. Shot clay his way. Put on your safety glasses.
And you get clay.
Any questions coming in? I mean, again, it's a pretty straightforward process. So if there's not a lot, that's okay.
It is. There aren't a ton.
Wow.
A couple about the cure time. 30 minutes.
30-minute cure.
Best choice.
Amazing
Best choice you
maker.
could make if you're making a mold.
Just
is Amazing Mold Maker.
If you, after watching this, if you don't go to the Michaels and grab Amazing Mold Maker, I don't know what else we can do to convince you. I mean, this is it.
We'll judge you.
We'll judge you. Yeah, there you go.
All. I feel like they needed something.
That's right.
Yes. Yep. So questions about that, regardless of size, typically give it a good 30 before you're making any moves here.
Yep.
Where do we get our gloves? We just get off Amazon.
Yeah, I've used a few different sources. From a glove standpoint, personally speaking, I use nitrile gloves just because, if I have a guest here or anything like that, I don't want to put them in a bad position if they have a latex allergy or something like that. So
that is very considerate of you. We have a great question.
Yeah.
That makes me feel very excited to answer.
Oh, fantastic.
Can you reuse the plastic mixing container that you mixed the silicone in? And the answer is absolutely.
Yes.
As Jordan struggles over here.
Don't mind me.
I will answer.
Thank you.
Once it's cured, wait the 30-minute cure time. And if everything was properly mixed, you should be able to pull the cured silicone entirely out of that container. Kind of feels like a balloon when you do that.
It's kind of fun.
It's very satisfying. And then, reuse it, mix up some more. When would you degas if you were degassing? Right after you mix, correct?
Yeah, right after you thoroughly mix. You don't want to do it beforehand because you still would need to mix it up. And then you have to degas
Introduce
again,
some air,
introduce more
yep.
air. So you want to degas right after you fully mixed your silicone. And, you know, if y'all want to see more tips about degassing silicone or pressure casting or whatever,
It looks like
we're
might have
close.
got it.
We're close. It's
Yeah.
just, you know, when a sulfur-free clay or it's oil-based clay or something like that, usually the colder it is, the stiffer the clay is. So that's why you see me struggling with this. Okay. 2-second break for a drink of water.
Got your workout in over there.
All right. So now hopefully this clay just comes apart. Again, I'm going to go really gently here. And you can see I'm not going to dislodge that. I want to go slow and steady here to make sure my walls stay in place. I want these to be where they are. I want this part to stay where it is. I'm just trying to get rid of the clay here. That's it.
If you need an extra set of hands, let me know.
I just got to spin it towards me. That's all. Woo.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so there you go. You can see the clay comes off pretty straightforward. We have registration marks that we're already cutting here. So I'm going to throw this to the side, do a little bit of spacing. There you go. So you can see there's registration here. That's going to make these two sides lock in. We've got other dots and other squiggles. It's going to be it. So now we have our first part done. Now, if you remember what I said before, silicone sticks to silicone. So we got to do something here that's going to make sure that when we pour this for the second time, it doesn't just become a block that we can't get apart.
With something trapped inside.
Exactly. So let's keep it easy, y'all. We're going to use Vaseline.
Oh, easy.
Yeah. So Vaseline works great for this applications. There are rubber to rubber mold releases, other things you can purchase as well. But to keep things simple for you, we're just going to use Vaseline. It's honestly just grab some on a fingertip, and then you're just going to spread it around across the silicone.
Are we talking a lot, a little, a couple layers?
Good question.
It's the insider info.
So I like to do just one layer, and I like to do a good amount as I do that one layer. Because what I'll do is I can take some of this off if I need to, but it's going to be I'll be really sad if the silicone sticks together. So I'm really making sure that I get into all the nooks and crannies of the silicone to make sure this is going to come apart very easily. If you don't do that, again, you're going to end up with one block. You're going to be very, very sad. So Vaseline does the trick. I know a lot of y'all will just have Vaseline probably just laying around the house. So an easy way, an easy tool to use. Again,
anything not to use besides nothing.
Oh, I mean, silicone sticks to silicone, like I mentioned before. So there are some aerosols and sprays that are mold releases that are great for when you're doing a casting. Those sprays oftentimes contain a little bit of silicone in them. So if you use a spray that's made for a casting mold release, you're actually just like super gluing silicone to silicone. It's actually kind of funny.
Stick with Vaseline.
I don't know that from experience or anything.
No, never.
Yeah.
We never make mistakes here. Ever.
One or two a year.
Ever.
Just one or two.
A day.
A day. All right. So there we go. I've got that completely all. It's nice and it's shiny. You know, it's going to be easy.
Awesome.
Now, the main thing I want to do before I mix up our second batch and pour it, is I want to make sure I don't have anything on the actual part. If I have a big lump of Vaseline on the part itself, that's going to mess up our mold. So a Q-tip, I'll usually use my fingers to start to make sure I don't feel anything. And then I'll just use a Q-tip or something like that to pick up any remnants that are going to live on this thing. So that's good to go. Our part's not dislodged. This is good. Now it's just the same thing all over again, folks. Another 8 ounces of silicone.
Oh, love
Mix
it.
up a batch and you keep going. So let's do that right now.
Love it. Got about 10, 15 left. So now's the time to roll in the questions if you got them.
You got 'em.
I
Ask
can
'em.
now see by this, if you did not clay up around the edges of the part, there would just be silicone everywhere.
Be all over it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Make
you
sure
don't
your
want that.
clay is up against your part.
That's right. if you press this, in this particular instance, if you pressed your outlet cover down far enough, you can actually get it pretty far sunken in and then cut away the clay that would maybe extrude out. If you want to make it easier on yourself. Otherwise, you just got to be patient when it comes to two-part mold making. This is just a labor of making sure you have everything right, making sure everything is covered and that nothing's going to leak. So again, I kind of moved these foam core walls pretty hard when I was demolding the clay. So we might end up with like a little bit of a leak on our hands because I was a little
live
aggressive.
on camera.
Live on camera
like
leak.
I said, we never make mistakes.
That's right. So another 8 ounces. That's what we're going for. I should have enough in this bottle here to pretty much give me exactly that. I've got a little bit to the side as well, just to make sure I got the extra, but cool. I'm going to do right up to 4. Excellent. Making a mess, having fun. That's the point. I didn't get the microphone messy, Matt. I promise. We're good. We're clear.
We got a thumbs up. We can live to see
Good.
another day. It's awesome. Scrolling through the comments. I did not just mean to say that and sing song.
Love that. Love that. We're just being ourselves over here.
Plaster of Paris has popped up a few times.
As in,
It's in the chat.
Plaster of Paris is in the chat.
It's in the chat.
Why is-
Plaster of Paris.
Just people saying plaster
Can
of
you
Paris.
use that with this product?
Like, can I
Is
cast
it a
plaster of Paris?
casting or is
Plaster
it a
of
mold
Paris?
making
Yeah,
situation?
I would I would not make a mold with plaster
Okay.
of Paris.
Okay.
I would cast with plaster of Paris.
We are
So,
clearing this up for not only me, but other people
others
as
as
well.
well.
But I'll be the guinea pig here. So
Fair
there we
enough.
go.
No, plaster of Paris. If you're using that, I actually believe Michael's should have some of that on the shelf as well. You can check that
Ooh.
out. But yeah, I will use plaster of Paris in silicone molds if I'm looking for kind of something that's like a ceramic-y part of some kind. Hand casting kits that you can get off the shelf. Oftentimes, we'll use a plaster or some plaster of Paris in order to make it. Would I use that to make a mold? Not for this application.
Okay.
If we're talking ceramics, that's a different thing. So
Got it.
We'll
We'll leave it at that.
we're gonna be done there.
Great.
You have a specific
Unfortunately,
question,
we
there you
don't
go.
sell ceramics. We are not ceramics experts, but we can use Amazing Mold Maker.
I did take one pottery class.
How was that?
Yeah, I think I was entertaining for everybody else.
Mm,
It was one of those type of situations.
that makes sense.
That's okay.
Makes very much sense.
All right.
Very much sense.
Makes
It's
a lot of
Friday
sense.
afternoon. I hope everyone's feeling good. Getting ready for Halloween.
I'm really glad y'all joined us for this. as
Me
well.
too. On such a day.
Yes. All right.
I'm wondering what costumes we're getting. Is anyone
Ooh.
wearing a costume?
Is anybody using this for their costume?
Oh,
That's a question.
that's the real question. Someone wants to know what is being mixed with the silicone. It's a 2-part
That's right.
silicone.
2 parts. So there's a red part, which is I believe, A side. Yep. The A side's red and the B side is white. We did that because we want you to clearly see the 2 parts being combined. So that's very, very easy. By the way, same process for pouring the second half of the silicone here. Pick a spot. Don't
Stay
move.
at that spot.
Don't move. Right. Again, we do that just to make sure we don't trap air. We want to make this an easy process for everybody. So
Also, so you can have something satisfying to watch on
Yeah,
your
here you go.
screens on this Friday afternoon
so fun.
or Friday morning, late morning if you're a West Coaster.
I guess that's true. If you're not watching this live, it also could be 2 a.m. in the morning. Who's
What
to
a
say?
time to make a mold.
I've got to be honest with you. I've been there.
I was going to say, I bet you've done it.
Yep.
I would never. I'm a 9 p.m. bedtime kind of gal. Doesn't matter that it's Halloween.
Nope. Still in bed. You've done your trick or treating. It's time to go home.
Ooh, got a good one for you.
Here we go.
Does Mold Maker generate any heat when it cures?
Ooh.
Or can I use it to make a mold of something sculpted in monster clay?
Oh, first of all, I love monster clay. Personally, that's actually the clay that was in here, believe it or not.
The chocolate.
Yeah, that was the chocolate clay. So the heat, why they're bringing up monster clay is monster clay actually melts down with a little bit of heat.
Mm.
By the way, this is done. Ta-da.
Woo.
Cool. So monster clay melts down with a little bit of heat. So if you had a heat generating material, then it would melt the monster clay and that would ruin the sculpture. you're not going to have that problem with silicone. I've done a few different sculptures out of Monster Clay and used Amazing Mold Maker to do the castings of them, and they turned out phenomenal. So you're
30
good to
minutes
go.
have gone by in the blink of an eye.
Love this kitchen show routine. Yay! Look at that.
30 minutes later, it's fully cured.
Silicone on both sides. Do we need the walls anymore? No. So the first thing I'm going to do is just take away the walls. Oh, there we go. So again, if I didn't mold release these two halves, which I'm now going, okay, please let these be mold released, then this would just be a solid block.
I can tell you, the one in my hand definitely is mold release.
Yes,
I have another secret.
We do have a
one.
backup. Okay, so here we go. Y'all ready? This has been a lot of work.
Moment of truth.
3, 2, 1. Here we go. Oh, it's a little. Oh boy.
Uh-oh.
Just a little bit of. We're good. Hey, we're good. We're good. All
Be
good.
cool. Be
All
cool.
good.
Ooh.
All right. So a little bit of adhesion there. So that just means there was a spot that didn't quite get as much Vaseline or rubber to rubber mold release. No big deal. No big deal. Don't fret. Get your X-Acto knife out. Go ahead. Very easily. You don't need, once the silicone's under tension right here, you can see this is stretching. That's going to be so easy to cut. I'm just like pressing the knife barely to it.
Crisis averted.
All is well, folks.
Incredible.
All is well. This is that. That's all that. Look at that. We can pop out. Oh, another satisfying one for you. Pop that out. There's all of our detail on the front of our mold. There's the two halves. Look at that. Ah, perfect. You can see we've got the actual inset of the back here. That's this back portion. So that fidelity's there. And we have all of the decoration on the front. If you signed up for this class, I think you probably saw a photo of a wrench. That wrench is the same situation as this. There's detail on the back. It has a unique shape. So that's actually covered as well. Same process, same everything. It's just about claying up the two halves and making sure you have it. All right, we're getting to the end of class. You've stuck with me. Thank you for sticking with us, by the way.
Yes.
The last thing we're going to do, we're not going to cast this today. That's a completely different topic, but we are going to cut an event in here. So you just have to think through the pour of this process. So I'm actually going to use the top of this outlet cover as a vent. And all I'm going to do is just kind of give myself a simple cut along this edge here to make sure that it's going to pour into the light switch cover. It's a very thin cut. Doesn't have to be very deep at all. And all I'm doing is just removing silicone that gives me a pour spout in here. Once I'm away from the part, I can make this a little bit bigger, a little deeper to make sure that there's space for the resin to flow in there. But that, I mean, again, this doesn't have to be high fidelity, folks. We're just trying to get something that allows us to pour into the mold. If you take your time with this, you have to make sure you pick the right spot, all of that. But again, that's going to do it. Now, that's just one half. What we can actually do is put these two mold halves together. You can see they go back together perfectly because that registration's in there. And now you can see where that vent was. Then I can, on this one, put it down here. I'll have to do that. Now I've got even more pour spout. Bada bing. So now when I make that actual casting out of this, I might add some foam core to the sides to give myself some rigidity right
and
here.
You're just pouring your resin right in there.
And you're done.
Wow.
Two-part molds, y'all.
Wow.
Two-part molds. It's not as difficult as it might feel. Takes a little bit of time. We kitchen showed you today, so we kind of got to expedite the process. But again, the principles are the same. No matter how big the project is, you're going to have to go through the clay up sometimes if you're doing a two-part mold. So easy enough?
Easy enough.
Any questions? I mean, this is it. We got a little bit of time together. So if you got your questions, send them my way. Ask them right now. Otherwise, you can also email us as well.
Yes. And you can find us on social media.
That's right.
At Alumilite Co. We'll answer your questions. Usually we'll make Jordan answer them and then we'll type them out. He doesn't use social media.
Hey, I'm a little archaic in that way. I'm a little classic.
All right. Sydney's plugging our links. Thank you, Sydney. Thank you, everyone.
That's right.
For joining this Halloween not themed class.
Basically, it's just around Halloween.
Yes.
Again, it's so fun to be able to teach everybody here and to learn alongside all of you. So please, if you have recommendations for the next class, throw those in the chat real fast too. We want to do the projects and the classes that you're interested in. I could come up with stuff, but if you've got something in mind, just send it our way and we'll cover it.
It's
As
true.
always, thank you so much.
Sydney's
Thank you,
typing like a
Michaels.
fiend.
Sydney's
We're going to
going.
give her a second to answer the question she's answering. We'll stall. We'll give her a
Love a good
second.
stall. Again, if you've got a moment, if you think you know what you want to see us make next, throw it in the chat. We're down for whatever.
Oh, and the Facebook group. We've
In
got
the
a
Facebook
Facebook group.
We do?
Yeah. So if you've got questions about very specific applications, our team can probably answer them for you. But if you go to the Facebook group, Alumilite's Facebook group is linked there. So many other makers are showing off what they are making. They've probably done something similar.
It's true.
Your 2-part mold, your turning resin, whatever it might be. Those makers know everything. It's
They know
the
a lot.
place to be.
Awesome.
Place to be. Oh,
Say-
we've got
What's up?
we rock their socks.
Aw, that's so kind.
I know.
We
That
have
feels
fun doing
good.
this. Yeah, that feels great. I'll have a good weekend,
Exactly.
A little mood boost. Thank you for
Yes.
that.
You all rock our socks
Agreed.
so much.
Okay. If there's nothing else, thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time. Thank you, everybody. And thank you, Michaels. We'll see you soon.
Have a good weekend.